All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Thursday, August 19th, 2021, and this is your evening tropical update. We continue to track two storms this evening. We have Tropical Storm Grace moving off the Yucatan Peninsula with a second landfall expected in the west or the east coast of Mexico's mainland sometime overnight on Saturday or Friday night into Saturday morning. And then we also have kind of the big ticket item, which is Tropical Storm Henri continuing to misbehave and now looking more like there's a good chance that somewhere in New England from the Cape Cod to New York area may be taking a significant pass in the storm or a direct hit. We're we'll tell you all about it. Don't worry. But we're gonna really quick go over Grace tonight. Not a threat to the eastern United States. Even South Texas will be well away from the storm, but we'll quickly cover it. The system leaving the Yucatan this evening is in pretty good shape. Grace did not really get all that banged up by the Yucatan. Some storms really don't. This isn't the most hostile landmass. It is land. It does weaken the storm. She is a tropical storm. Was a hurricane when she crossed last night, but definitely not a storm that looks like she's battered and is going to take a while to recover. The system is probably going to start re-strengthening sooner than later. Hurricane Center thought it wasn't as strong as it was, and then the recon pass went in there, found the storm offshore, and the data from that not only told us that the pressure down to about low 990s was stronger than we thought, but the wind speeds were also up near 65 miles an hour. The Hurricane Center bumped her up to 60 this evening, and she'll likely be a hurricane by tomorrow morning. And I think that the system is very likely to continue to intensify before landfall overnight, Friday night into early Saturday morning, like right around midnight Friday into Saturday. Hurricane Center showing that landfall right there, central mainland of Mexico. Hurricane warnings in effect. They forecast an 85 mile an hour hurricane. I would say, but do note in their discussion it could be stronger than that. I would agree, and I would say probably plan for a category two. I think Grace is looking this good tonight. Little chance she's not going to be a pretty strong hurricane moving in. There's little wind shear, very warm water down here, and there's a little bit of dry air that might be another saving grace again. But I'm starting to wonder if we're gonna get that lucky twice. We did last night. Don't think we're gonna get lucky again. So folks in this region need to prepare for a pretty solid hit from a pretty solid hurricane on Friday night and Saturday morning. But again, no impact to the eastern United States, so we'll leave it there. We'll go ahead and move on to Henri, which is the big ticket item tonight. So the big story from yesterday was okay, tomorrow we've got to watch Henri. So what we said last night going into today was wind shear is going to pick up. We got to see how the system holds together. If it gets blasted and it's all weak and falling apart, it may want to go ahead and start turning sooner, and we may have a storm moving offshore, may have no issue. Well, I'm unhappy to report that Henri once again has proven that he is not going down without a fight. The system is still a tropical storm. It's a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm tonight, but guys, this is a satellite presentation that I'm not liking because this is a storm that is trying. It's in a cage. It's an animal in a cage, and it's trying to get out. And you know, as soon as you open that door, which the door is about to open, it's gonna start messing stuff up. And that's unfortunately what my gut feeling is on Henri tonight. Is that we are probably gonna be looking at a pretty decent hurricane moving up the east coast tomorrow and Saturday. And chances of this thing moving into New England, the stronger it is, the more of a chance it wants to move into New England. And I think this thing's going to be pretty strong. And folks up there probably need to start thinking about their plans and thinking about what they're going to do because this could be a pretty good strike from a storm. Now, there is a lot of uncertainty that remains. And we're going to talk about a lot of the flies left in the ointment. It's not like this is a done deal. You're getting smacked. There's a lot of worlds where this thing can still stay offshore, but the trends today really haven't helped the cause, if that makes any sense. So let's go ahead and show you some of the latest things. So the wind shear is the big thing. We'll go ahead and use the water vapor imagery to show you the setup. We have this trough moving in over the Great Lakes. You can see the southwest flow moving aloft, and then this is kind of going into a ridge of high pressure, which is then kind of working down. This northeast flow has been what has battered Henri since this morning. GFS does show this well. This is valid from earlier this morning. Henri, this stamp here at 995 millibars. And you can see he's well in this north flow with the deeper colors. This is like 20, 25 knots of shear. It's pretty strong amount of wind shear. This is causing the northern part of the storm to flatten out. You can see these nice cirrus clouds to the south moving out. It's got great outflow down here, but the top of the storm is just flat. I mean, it's just literally like just being just battered in the face with strong wind shear. However, this wind shear is going to abate. You can see here that the system is already starting to leave where it looks like that strong flow is. It's kind of moving now on the edge of that flow, and the GFS again illustrates this well. If I pull you up the right one, we'll go into overnight tonight. into 6Z Friday morning. This is just after midnight tonight, and Henri is sliding up under the axis of this high pressure aloft. This is a higher height system. So what it's doing is it's moving out of the strong flow. You can see the flows over here, but now Henri has crept way over here in these much lighter flow, lighter colors, indicating that the wind shear will quickly relax. And then by Friday afternoon, he's almost dead up under a high pressure system, which will begin to vent the storm, and it's going to start really helping it intensify. So if the storm looks this good now, where it's being still buffered by wind shear, and then tomorrow you're going to put it under a high pressure system that's going to start venting the storm, this is going to start going off. I have little doubt about it. Tonight we are watching a couple different trends, but one of the things we're doing is hurricane hunters are flying the storm. We had a storm pass earlier today from the Air Force Reserve hurricane hunters, and tonight also NOAA's Gulfstream aircraft is flying around the storm. It's flying the environment around the system, better collecting samples of the atmosphere around the storm to better assess how all those little details look. So our computer models will actually get this data. It'll get really good data to start making a better forecast off of. Again, a computer model is only as good as how you tell it to work, right? So instead of just having the model take its best guess, we actually can fly around and get some good information. Weather balloons are being launched like crazy to monitor this trough back here. So between all these weather stations are launching balloons like every 6 hours, and airplanes are flying the parts we can't launch balloons on. So we're getting a much better idea of how all this goes. And this is going to be a complicated logjam, okay? I'll show you on the 500 millibar chart how Henri is going to move up the coast, okay? So this is Henri tomorrow up under that ridge axis. So the steering flow that's pushing it to the west in the mid levels. Again, that northerly flow is only one component. The rest of the winds from the top of the atmosphere to the down are trying to push it to the west. All that collapses tomorrow, and Henri kind of starts this turn. Again, on Hurricane Center's track, you can see here he begins to turn by tomorrow afternoon, and by Saturday afternoon, 24 hours later, will be turned very much more to the north, okay? So we see that again on the GFS, and what we'll do is we'll take this out to Saturday, because what happens is this upper low begins to really kind of kick in over parts of the Mid-Atlantic region and New England. And what this is rotating counterclockwise, and it's trying to pull Henri to the north, okay? So what would happen in a lot of cases is this would simply kick Henri out offshore. This low would just kind of boot it, and it would just go, see ya, and it'd be no problem. And we'd be like, oh, okay, whatever, no problem. It's offshore, who cares? Well, not going to be the case, because if you look to Henri's north, there's this big high pressure cell over southern Canada and Maine and whatnot, and this is going to block Henri. So as we move up a little closer, this is moving into early Sunday. This high is still sitting here, and Henri is sort of blocked. Now, I've explained this before, but high pressure systems, which is what you see here, this ridge, blocks hurricanes. It moves them around. So what you have here is a ridge blocking Henri, and you have a low pressure over the Virginia region trying to push it this way. So you kind of have these two flows that are trying to hook the storm back to the north and to the west and towards land. Now, there's a micromanage here, right? Because say this low is a little bit weaker and the system kind of just stalls and it just drifts. Okay. Say this high is actually over here, and then there's a bit of an opening, and Henri kind of comes up and then he just goes off. Or say this high is really quick and it's way over here, and the flow is like this. Okay. And then Henri just follows the flow out, and it's no big deal. There's basically option A, which is really kinked flow and goes into land. There's option B, which is sort of kinked flow that's going to kind of let it come up, wander, and leave. And then there's not very kinked flow, which is just goes off and out. That's the best way I can really explain it. It is pretty complex, and our computer models are struggling with it, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Okay, Hurricane Center's track shows the option B, which is that the storm comes up Friday or Saturday into Sunday morning and begins to stall near the coast of Cape Cod, sits just offshore, maybe a landfall like Nantucket, and then begins to leave. Okay, there's a lot that the other micromanage besides, again, there's like three options. Option A is it's strong and it just slingshots right into the coast, and it's a pretty big deal. Option B, which is it comes up, slows down at the coast. It's still a pretty big deal with the onshore flooding and the rainfall flooding threat for this region, but doesn't really come ashore. The worst of the winds mostly stay by the coast, and then it leaves. And option C is somehow it sneaks off to the right and just kind of stays offshore, and it's a miss, and everyone's mad because they didn't get the bad weather they were said they were going to get. That's kind of your three options, right? So The other micromanage here is Henri's forward speed as it approaches, because here's what the water temperatures look like. This is a big governing factor. Right now, Henri is over some pretty warm water, anomalously warm water for this time of year in this region. So it's a very warm water. That's why it looks as good as it does. That's probably the main reason. And he's going to have this time over the Gulf Stream waters between now and probably early Sunday. Okay, so this whole region, anything yellow, orange, or red, will not only support a hurricane, but it will support an intensifying hurricane. Greens are kind of a break even. It's like a hurricane comes over this, it can kind of live for a little while, but it's not ideal, and then anything below that is too cold. So when you get to like these 23s up here by New York and Massachusetts, that would induce weakening. And this is what the Hurricane Center's track actually shows, because they're taking the middle ground. They're showing it come up and stall. Notice how Sunday to Monday, that's all it moves. It only moves about 70, 60 miles. It doesn't go very far at all. It's basically stalled, but it's stalling over cold water. Because again, if you look back on the cold water, putting the hurricane here for at least a day would rapidly begin to weaken it. Okay, if it comes up too fast, it doesn't have any time over cold water, and then it just goes into the coast, and the weakening, because you're traversing this so fast, is limited. Option C is it just goes offshore, and we don't care about water temperatures because who cares, it's offshore. So that's kind of the rub. I'll show you the evening spaghetti models. They're showing a couple different ranges of options. The official hurricane forecast, center forecast in black. There's options to the left, which is what UK Met are showing, HWRF, and some other ones. These models typically trend stronger with the storm, and a couple of these models over here are trending a little weaker and thus off to the right. Again, that strength plays a big part. If Henri is somehow weaker, this upper trough that's trying to pull him northward doesn't influence him as much, because right now it's got a strong influence if he's strong. If he's weak, he doesn't feel the steering flow as much, and he kind of goes off. So I'm leaning towards the storm being strong, therefore I have to also then buy into stronger or more likely landfalls. But that's just me. European and GFS ensemble members, this is the model just taking a whole bunch of guesses. This is the model just brainstorming. Again, I just showed you the GFS for most of these models to show you the most likely or what we're thinking, but this is just some other brainstorms. GFS still shows about a 50-50 chance this comes close enough to the coast to be a direct impact. Most of these members are on the stronger side, especially in the next 48 hours. Same thing with the European model. All these blues and greens indicate a weaker storm that stays off to the right. The European models that are starting to buy a stronger storm. Again, the Euro as a whole doesn't really see Henri that strong yet, so grain of salt, but it does illustrate the few that do see a stronger storm are all closer to land, and the ones that don't are further offshore. So we'll continue to watch the storm. If I was in this region, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, that sort of area, I'd begin to think seriously about a potential of a hurricane hitting your area. I think right now you have to plan for a hurricane. Tonight is actually the anniversary of Hurricane Bob in 1991. So something like Bob is possible. I mean, if this thing is going to really get going and really kind of get slingshot in, it may not have enough time to weaken. And I think the chances of a Category 1 or 2 hurricane hitting up here are definitely not off the table. But that's just one of several options. It could come up to the coast, stall, and not really bother you, and it could go offshore. But I think that at least the chances of a storm getting close enough for direct wind or direct flooding impacts, both from coastal flooding and from rainfall pushing inland. Again, if this stalls for 24, 36 hours, that's a lot of rainfall in an area that can't handle a ton of rainfall. That's something to think about. So at this point, I would be preparing like I'm going to get something. I'd have my plan ready, but I would continue to watch the forecast. And if I need to get away from the ocean, I'd be ready to do so, because the chances of a pretty good storm coming up here are definitely not off the table. But there are still some worlds where Henri may be amiss. We just got to watch it. So that's what I got for you guys this evening. We'll be back tomorrow with more Henri coverage. So as always, thanks for watching and have a good one.